All right, welcome to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks Radio. I'm Jim Hobbs, and somewhere on the screen is my carnivore co-host, Brian Damaged Forsythe of the band Kix and Rhino Bucket. And we're just excited to have back a guest that we had on, I guess, about a month or two ago. She's phenomenal. We love her. Dr. Joan Ifland, just to give you a little bit of background of who she is. She's probably considered the world's specialist when it comes to food addictions and how to break those. But I want to kind of give her a little bit more of an introduction than just that. She's also the CEO of Food Addiction Training, LLC. She received her MBA from Stanford University and PhD in interdisciplinary studies with a specialization in addictive nutrition from the Union Institute and University. She has innovated in the field of recovery from food addiction. She was the first chair of the Food Addiction Council for the American College of Nutrition. She currently runs online approaches to recovery, addiction reset community, as well as the Facebook group Food Addiction Education. And Joan is also a food addict in recovery. So she's one of us.
Yeah.
So welcome back to Keto Rocks, Dr. Joan Ifland. It's a pleasure.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love being with you guys.
Oh, we love your energy. We love what you're sharing. We love what you're doing. And more importantly, we love the fact that you're helping people set themselves free from being under the food addiction. But something that we kind of touched on at the end last time we had you on, which we did not get a chance to dive deeper into, and especially since May was Mental Awareness Month. Do we mind if we touch base on just how important the food that we fuel our body with is to our mental awareness? And a lot of diseases are out there being diagnosed now. And I just read, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my research, I saw that 1 out of 5 Americans have a mental health issue. That's truly a staggering statistic, if you ask me.
1 out of 5 have a diagnosed mental health issue, but the other 80% are suffering without knowing it. And why do I say that? That just sounds so over the top. But since I have seen you, I have updated my own database on the issues of how much processed foods people are eating. It's now 73% of what Americans eat is processed as of 2018. And we also know that 44% of Americans gained weight during COVID. So you know that number is now much higher.
Yeah.
And then you pair that up, that's a vast quantity of sugars and flours and processed dairy and fats, caffeine. It's a huge quantity of it. We've been eating high fructose corn syrup since the 1980s, so that's 40 years of that. And there's some new research showing that it only takes rats 3 days to start binging on sugar. So these are not just addictive substances, but they're really addictive substances, and the addiction sets in quite quickly. So if you were born, like my children were born in the early 1980s, my children don't, because I stopped giving it to them in the 90s, but your children have been eating, you're now an adult, and you've been eating this stuff since you were a small child, because the tobacco companies went after small children. So we've been eating it for 40 years in vast quantities, increasing quantities, and it doesn't take very much to alter brain function. So this is the kind of evidence that I will put together to back up a statement like most people in the United States are suffering from a mental impairment without knowing it.
Well, let me just interject for a second, because last week Brian shared with us that he came across a diabetic association, or the Diabetes Association, with a poster that they had put out, which was showing you eating pancakes with syrup with a glass of orange juice. And these are the people who are supposedly protecting you or who care about helping you not get diabetes. And
So
yet that's exactly the reason why you would become a diabetic.
these organizations are dominated by dietitians. Dietitians are trained by, they are the professional arm of the processed food industry. They are representatives of the processed food industry. Now, they weren't told that when they were signed up for all that expensive training, but that's what they are trained to do. They're trained to promote use of processed foods. So that's why I just heard the most tragic story. I'll try to make it really as brief as possible, but a person who put their diabetes into remission with a clean food plan. I mean, they weren't on medication anymore. They had to go in the hospital for a procedure for an overnight. When they got to the hospital, they were given 100% refined carbohydrates on their hospital tray. Their diabetes, their glucose numbers shot up to 400. They started pumping them full of insulin and they died.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
And who is in charge of that food plan? Dietitians. Yeah. And you know, the other thing that you go to in this culture, half of all American adults have been diagnosed with a diet-related disease, which you're like, okay, if you're eating 73% of your sustenance in substances that make you sick, that would follow, you know, and those are only the diagnosed. So you've got, you know, some people think that only, you know, a small percent of diabetics, for example, are diagnosed. So you have half of Americans with a diagnosed metabolical disease. So you see that this is creating a crushing burden on the culture. And people are thinking, oh, well, that's just this group of people or that group of people. But the other story I really like to tell is that one time I had my own prepared meal business, and we were serving some high-end lawyers in downtown Houston. And I called them up at the end of the week and I said, how'd it go? They said, well, it was great. I love the food, but some strange things have happened and I'd like to check them out with you. I don't seem to be thinking about food so much. Oh, those are the creme de la creme. This is one of the top law firms in Houston. So they would recruit the top law students. This is the top, high functioning. Those people had a sign of addiction, which is cravings. And they said, I noticed that my mid-afternoon slump is gone. And I noticed that I'm thinking more clearly. I thought, oh, dang, oh, dang, oh, dang, oh, dang. This has reached the very highest levels of our culture. And so, you know, you look at that, cravings are a sign of a mental illness. But because we've had them since we were little, we don't know that they're not normal. Right. Like I was 44 years old, sitting in my kitchen, doing some work at the kitchen table, and I had given up sugars and flours 4 days earlier. And I looked up at the clock and it was noon. And I had sat down around 8 o'clock and I said, wow, I haven't thought about food in 4 hours. First time in my life. My earliest memory is of trying to manipulate an ice cream truck driver into giving me a free ice cream. That's not an exaggeration. So I've had cravings and urges and desires since my earliest memory. I didn't know that you could stop cravings. And so everybody who comes into your community and they get on this carnivore diet and their cravings stop, I know they associate it with the carnivore diet, but it's what happened was they gave up the substances that were stimulating the cravings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cravings are a mental illness, and everybody has them.
We actually had a guest last week, and it's kind of, she came at it backwards. Basically, her doctor is also her mom's doctor, and she had open heart surgery later on in life. She was 84 years old. And so the doctor told her, look, so you don't follow the same path. We need to get you off the sugar now. So we need you to wean
Oh,
yourself off the
yay.
sugar. Absolutely. He's out of New Jersey. We gave him a bunch of kudos because God bless, we need more physicians that are giving that type of advice.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said played out for her. So she just really started to try to eliminate sugars out of her diet, but she started to notice that she was sleeping better, and then she wanted to go deeper than that. She like, maybe I'm going to remove the pastas and the starches. And then she's like, I'm not hungry all the time now.
Yes.
And then she totally just the transition was she basically became she was doing intermittent fasting, not because she set out to do so, but because her body was no longer in that, oh, what am I going to eat in the next 30 minutes? And so she was never really overweight. I think she lost 15 pounds over 5 years, but she's lived this lifestyle now for 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's the benefits, as you just like you said about the attorneys in Houston. It's them getting off of sugar and not knowing that they can feel this way, and they don't know what to attribute it to. But the reality of it is, if we start to look at food as fuel for our bodies, then we should put the highest octane food that we can in our bodies and let the food do what it's supposed to do and let our body process it the way. See, let your body process the food. Don't let man process it and put it in you, because then the roles is totally different. You are the processor. You eat the one ingredient food. And you'll be surprised how your body responds naturally.
It's incredible every time. We have an online recovery community because my research for the textbook showed that this is a severe addiction in most people. And I just went back into the data to see if there were any updates on that. And I found a lot of new studies. So there are 11 signs of addiction, according to the American Psychiatric Association. And if you have 6 or more of those, you are considered to have a severe addiction. So 83% of Americans are now overweight or obese.
Wow.
83% overweight, obese, or severely obese. And the last time I looked, what I see now is that it's not like people are coming in severely obese into those categories. They're moving up. The overweight people are becoming obese, and the obese people are becoming severely obese. So the categories are moving up, and now 83% of Americans are in one of those 3 categories. So I started to look for research on those signs of addiction. Are they present in obese people? And the answer is yes. So unintended use. You have a plan, you're going to eat so much, but you eat more. So everybody who's overweight is suffering from unintended use. They don't want to be that way, and yet they are. The next one is failure to cut back. Well, another new study, very, very consistent results. Within 3 years, if you've lost weight, you'll start to regain it. So that's over 90% of people have had that experience. And then you have cravings. So cravings do appear more intensely in obese people. And you have use in spite of knowledge of consequences. And this is absolutely shocking. But I mentioned it earlier, 44% of Americans gained weight during COVID. Now here you have these screaming headlines every 15 seconds. It's all over. Obese people are more likely to die. And so how do we respond to that? 44% of people gained weight. So that is use in spite of knowledge that you could die, and you're still using. And then you have tolerance, which is progressive use. You're using more and more. And we do see that number of 73% of what Americans are consuming, it's higher than it was 10 years ago. I don't remember the number from 10 years ago. Maybe it was 64%, but it's higher. the whole population is eating more of these processed foods. And then you have use for reasons other than hunger. So there you've got 6. And we have new research showing that people who are in difficult relationships tend to gain weight more. So they're using food to soothe a difficult relationship. That's not hunger, that's drug use.
Right.
So now you have, which is exactly what you would see. So you have tobacco. Remember, tobacco bought Nabisco, Kraft, General Foods in the mid 1980s, 85 through 88. So here we are almost 40 years later. You would expect to see this disease pattern. You would expect to see all of these signs because addictions get worse over time. And these are highly addictive substances, and they're being constantly promoted. We're being stimulated. You know, the addicted reward centers are constantly being provoked or signaled to release these floods of cravings into our brains. It's not us. It's sick reward center brain cells. So, I mean, the cool thing is that now we have an answer. We do have this online community. That degree of addiction needs a lot of retraining. We have about 100 billion brain cells. Because we were so severely addicted as children, every cell in my brain developed in an addicted brain. I've got to retrain all 100 brain cells. And the thing is, we have found that what's really fun is that if you have constant access and you can just make it routine. Oh, I have a strong emotion. Oh, I can't figure out. I can't solve this problem. And you can pop in on a screen and get someone very wise, well-trained to just walk you through it. You won't eat over it. So that is how you beat the addiction. People with severe addictions historically have been sent to residential treatment. But you can't do residential treatment for this disease because it happens at home. And as soon as you get home from residential treatment, one of the strongest triggers is a place trigger. Your brain just looks around home and says, oh yeah, we know what we do here. Oh, we binge here. Okay, get out the binge foods. and within days, they're binging again and they hate themselves. So this really does set up the brain for, there are really 4 specific categories of mental illness that come out of using this huge quantity of highly addictive substances being sold to us as if they were food. They're obviously not food, they're recreational drugs, and ruining people's lives.
What's your research shown? I mean, I'm constantly looking for stuff, educational materials, and I've seen a lot lately in regards to being able to break that brain pattern with psilocybin microdosing. What's your thoughts on that, or you have any thoughts?
Oh my gosh, that just makes my heart hurt. You have you have a brain that's in a tremendous amount of pain. Their brain cells are being helplessly stimulated by these predatory environments, by these predatory industries. And it's not just processed foods. It's also pharmaceuticals, and it's screens, and it's gambling, and it's sex, and it's romance novels, and it's vaping and cigarettes and alcohol and cannabis now. I mean, we're just under this constant assault from these addiction businesses. And you know, with my Stanford MBA, I am very interested in business models. I have published on the addiction business model. And I just put together a presentation for a hospital on the very specific tobacco techniques, addiction techniques that were brought over to Sugar for Children. We have this incredible group of researchers at the University of California, San Francisco. UCSF they're the depository for the insider tobacco documents that were required to be put on file as part of their court settlements. So those researchers are going through those documents, and it is, you know, you think you've heard the worst of humanity, and then you hear something like this. They took very specific tactics, addiction tactics that they had developed for tobacco, tragically successfully. 2/3 of American adults smoked. This is how, when I talk about 73% of what we eat, nobody's, it can't be that high. Come on, Joan. But then you look back at tobacco, 2/3 of American adults smoked. These are master addictionists. Cigarettes have absolutely no value whatsoever. They were simply a device for carrying nicotine addiction. But these guys, they made cigarettes sexy and rebellious and masculine. Just bullshit.
Well. I mean, you had Hollywood who promoted it. You also had back in the day the doctor says to smoke because it relaxes you, and so people go, oh well, I'm doing something healthy when I smoke. But to use those same tactics to use that in promoting food to young kids, well, that's a whole different category now, because they're in the developing stages of their lives, and you are raising up little addicts, and you can just go to a park these days and see kids in their elementary and middle school and see the number of kids who are inflamed or obese potential, and it's really sad. But once you know what you know, and once Brian knows what he knows, and once people experience what we're talking about, because I know it sounds like a foreign language and something they just don't want to break free from the addiction, because they think that we're all the ones that are telling them bad advice. But the reality of it is, I always say truth doesn't need defending. You just need to be aware of truth and ask yourself and be honest with yourself. What have you manifest by following the American standard diet? And how are you really feeling based on the prescriptions that your medical physician is prescribing for you or your children? And that's all you got to do. And as Brian says, they're all about the managing, but they're never about getting to the root cause so you can be healed from that disease, and whatever that disease is. And for most people, it is an addiction that's causing them all the other addictions, which is causing them the disease and causing them the mental illness. And then where do they go? Because they're literally going to the place they think they should go. But what they don't realize is those people have been programmed by the people who used to run the tobacco industry.
It's the same thing. Jim, what you're saying is just, every year it becomes more and more apparent to me. The medical community is the marketing arm for this pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Just like the dietitians are the marketing arm for the processed food industry. And, having a daughter, my daughter is an MD, but she's an MD MBA. And she figured out after 10 years, I think it cost $750,000 for education, including foregone income. After a couple of years in the clinic, seeing patients every 8 minutes, she came to the realization that she could not help them. And now she's a full-time consultant. She left practice, and it was the right decision. I imagine what she thought. She saw the miracle in our household when she was 11 years old. We got at least the sugars and flours out, and she just thought she'd be able to give that gift to her patients, like I thought for 22 years. I'll just tell them about it. I'll just give them some education. Oh, no. This is when I talk about 4 categories of mental illness, one of the 4 categories is called cognitive impairment. And what that is all the other hyperactive parts of the brain are pulling the blood supply away from the frontal lobe. Well, that's where learning and attention span and decision making and impulse control and memory are. That's where they are. They're in the frontal lobe. So that's why we have epidemics of learning disabilities and ADD and poor decision making and poor impulse control and memory loss. Because we have found that when you take the processed foods away and the triggering, you have to take the food stimulation away and then the stress. And we teach our people to be calm in all circumstances, and then hyperactive food seeking from dieting. When you get that stopped, all these frontal lobe processes come back online. People's memory gets better. They're able to read again. You know, the attention deficit has been so severe that they couldn't read. You couldn't remember at the end of the sentence what the beginning of the sentence said. But they can pay attention long enough to read. Their memory comes back. They're making really high quality decisions, and they're controlling impulses. It's all processed food and processed food stimulation related. And the thing about addiction treatment, you have to be very careful, is that you're not letting the addiction transfer. Like when I got off of sugars and flours, I got onto, it was 1996, we hardly had the internet, but I could play, I had this game Tetris or something. No, it was online solitaire.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I found myself up at 2:00 in the morning. I want to go to bed. Oh, just one more game. I really want to go to bed. Oh, just one more game. So the addiction transferred. And now we know, I mean, with the advent of brain imaging technology in the late 1990s, all the corporations now know how to do this. They formulate products and they put them in front of people in MRI machines, and they see which product formulation, which advertisement lights up the addicted part of the brains the most, the reward centers. And so now they're all doing it.
You know, yeah, speaking of that, I was going to say this earlier, but this is a good place to put it. I was just listening to, I don't even remember which I listen to so many podcasts, I can't keep track of where I heard it, but somebody was talking about this new this new type of Doritos that they came out with.
Oh no.
Did you hear this?
I didn't.
Well, there's only a few like these extra flavorful Doritos like interspersed within the bag, and which actually they said when they do this experiment on mice, they take cocaine and they have 3 different levels strength, and they'll randomly give the mice different strengths, and because when they hit the full strength one, that kicks in their addiction. So then when they get the lesser strength, they just keep going at it and at it and at it, trying to get to that top strength again. So that's what they use that reasoning with these Doritos.
Oh my.
So people start to eat this bag of Doritos, they hit that one that's got more zing to it, and it causes them to just keep eating so they can find another one. And so it's like this, they just kick the addiction into overdrive. It's, you know, I'm sure they have their people in their labs and their scientists, you know, just trying to make it worse, you know. So
yes, I do remember years and years ago giving my first talk to the American College of Nutrition, and a scientist coming up to me afterwards and saying that he had been in charge of research for one of those big monster processed food companies. And he said, yes, he had 3 scientists whose full-time job it was to make the products addictive. Oh, Brian, I am so glad you told me about that. It just never ends.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Just when you think it's not going to get worse, it gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah, they're doing that same type of programming for the youth who play video games. So they bring the cost of introduction at a very low, affordable price. But once the kids get into playing the game, these ads will pop up and say, for a limited time, you can move to the next level by purchasing this. So these kids purchase for $5 or $10 the secret or the cheat code to get them around where they're stuck at. And so it's a never ending game. And so these companies have learned how to just literally suck every penny out of these kids' pockets and playing what used to be a game for entertainment. You know, we had Pong when it came out. You're just hitting a little white But now it's a way to suck money out of these kids' pocket. And what are they usually eating when they're playing these video games? Those Doritos that Brian just talked about.
Exactly.
So they're just building an addict for everything. And so it's troubling to see these little addicts that we're raising up, when the reality of it is we know what the solution is. We know that they're being programmed to be an addict.
Yeah. It's just, it's very similar. The video game hits are very similar to gambling addiction. You're getting a high from success, and then you get a crash, and you just keep seeking that next high. Yeah, this is bad. But before I lose you guys, let me also just run through the other 3 categories of mental illness that processed food addiction causes. And one is those hyperactivated stress pathways. The stress pathways are activated because the addiction pathways are hyperactivated. And if you're high, if you're euphoric, you are in danger, because for 7 million years of human evolution, or even if you're a creationist and you have the tribes, if you were euphoric and out of it, you were vulnerable to attack. The saber-toothed tiger was going to get you, or the neighboring tribe was going to get you. So the brain protects us by increasing stress. There's a pathway in the brain that activates the adrenal glands, and now you're flooded with euphoria and adrenaline. It's nasty. So the addiction, the kind of the cluster of addiction mental illness is cravings, obsession, and compulsion. But then there's this whole other, so that's number 2, is the addicted brain cells. We've got cognitive impairment, addicted brain cells, and then hyperactive stress. And now you have elevated stress means that the blood flow is going in your body, is going to your muscles so that you can run or fight. And that means that when you have chronic stress all the time, the rest of your body is not getting blood flow. So the rest of your organs are being deprived of blood flow, and they're weakened as a result. So panic disorders, I think even rage and aggression, it just comes from this constantly elevated adrenaline. It's artificial. It's not supposed to be there. It's not related to life. But the brain will make up explanations for it. Relationship problems. I'm angry at this person all the time. Well, there's nothing wrong with the person, but I have this extra adrenaline that needs an explanation. Oh, it must be because there's something wrong with them. And then there's a whole nother 4th category of mental illness, is the result of dieting and fasting. And that is food seeking. So when you don't get enough calories, your body goes into defense mode, and it's defending it against famine. And so now you have hyperactive food seeking. So there are 4 categories of mental illness. And the good news is if you can get into a recovery community and you can develop the skills, so defending against these tactics, the product formulation and the placement of advertisement, the constant stimulation, it's just so awful. But if you know about the tactics, then you can defend against them. And you can defend your family against them. And you can even defend your friends against them. It's just doable, but it takes very specific training. So no matter what you have been told, what happens to the addicted brain cells, of course, also is that they wear out. So now your reward centers are not working. That's depression. You have depression on the reward centers, anxiety from the hyperactivated adrenaline, and it all gets better. It can all be made to go away. But putting another drug on top of that, no. You have to get away from the stimulation, get the existing substances out of your system, go through withdrawal, learn how to control your thinking, learn how to control your emotions, learn how to eliminate toxic relationships and toxic media, just really clean up, clean up, clean up, clean up, clean up, get strong, get strong, get stronger, become more powerful, more capable, more knowledgeable, and then help the next person. Because that is the greatest satisfaction in life. That is 1,000 times better than the satisfaction from any addictive substance. It's helping the next person.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if someone's watching this program right now and they go, okay, I'm open to being able to break this habit, and they wanted to reach out to you, how can someone reach you? And then how long does the process take before they would start to notice some benefits from following your protocol?
Well, this is the thing that is so hidden. Within 4 days of me getting off of sugars and flours, and I hear this over and over again. I've checked this out with the executive director of a big recovery facility. It's 4 days is normal. Sometimes it's 8, 10, could be longer. Your brain fog lifts, the fatigue lifts, the bloating lifts, the cravings lift. This is just 4 days. And then within a week for me, my allergies were so much better. Airborne allergies, itchy eyes and constant sneezing, so much better. A lifelong sinus infection cleared up. This is within about 10 days. And then within 3 weeks, I noticed that the raging has stopped. That is such a big part of my story. I was raised by ragers. I was raging in a way that horrified me. I would just turn into two different people. I would be watching myself rage, and that just stopped. So when you think about, everybody says, well, this is a culture that wants instant gratification. Yes, we've got it. Go for it. I mean, I felt like I was winning the lottery every day. I had done years and years and years of work on the asthma, and nothing had helped. It was just getting worse and worse. And there it was, every day, something going away.
Yeah, Peggy and my wife and I was talking just this morning, talking about society as a whole, at least here in the United States of America, but people seem to be so want to engage in a debate, or, you got car rage taking place. You got people who are just angry, people who are protesting, and we were discussing, is that coming from what we're fueling our bodies with? These people are out there, they don't even know they're starving themselves, even though they eat 5 to 7 times throughout the day, but there's nothing of nutritional value. And all these triggers in their brain is causing them to have to place, like you said, they got to place that anger somewhere. So where do they place it?
Mm-hmm.
On you.
Oh, it must be the school board. Oh, it must be the politicians. I'm justified in being this angry. No, you're not. No, that's artificial. That's chemically driven. That is just from having too much adrenaline in your system from the substances. And of course, TV is getting more and more violent all the time. And TV, mainstream media is reinforcing this incredibly. One horror movie after another, just designed to take those exhausted adrenal glands and get one more zip out of them in a frightening movie. And there are a lot of things that we just gradually disengage from. And then we become happier and happier. And we look back and we say, oh, I see how miserable that made me, how unhappy. But people have to be able to see a pathway out. And really something remarkable that I've learned just recently, we do this in our recovery community, but every now and then I'll get words or framework for something that we're already doing. We are 1000% kind, patient, gentle with our members. And they are able to move forward in that kind of environment. If you're judging them and you're criticizing them, you're telling them what to do, and you're frustrated that they're not doing it, that is paralyzing. And that's what everybody does. So what I learned, and this was in a study, that people who felt that they were okay, I'm okay, those are the people who can move forward. So the big thing that I always want your community to walk away with this. None of this was your fault. The weight regain, not your fault. Diet industry is just as predatory and screwed up, selling a bad product, a mythical product, a delusional product, just as bad as the processed food industry is. So the rage is not your fault. The weight gain is not your fault. The diet-related diseases are not your fault. The pharmaceutical industry is preying on you just as well. Absolutely not the pathway to getting rid of a diet-related disease. You can't put a drug on top of bad food and think anything good is going to come from that. And it's not even a Band-Aid. It's just making things worse. I just was looking at the research on how many different pharmaceuticals cause bone deterioration. I just did all the research last week on bone deterioration. A whole nother system that I hadn't really ever focused on. So even broken bones, those are not your fault. And bones that won't heal, not your fault. Amputations from diabetes, not your fault. This is just one scam after another. And the answer is to get around people who are using breath work and exercise in community and socializing and good sleep routines. Those are the sources of true recovery.
Yeah.
Well, I also, one of the things that we share on this channel and this show a lot is the fact that you are your best advocate in all areas of living out your life. You cannot give away that power to choose what you're going to put in your body to somebody else just because they have, doctor in front of them, or just because they have a nutritionist in front of them. Mm-hmm. So you have to be honest with yourself. And is your future of your life and your family's life not worth going to check out Dr. Joan Ifland's website and give it 4 days to see if you start making these improvements, which you've tried your whole life to see? And in just 4 days, you start to see these benefits manifest themselves. Because, the guest we had on last week, to me, was so impactful, and that these things started to unfold. And, one of the things we didn't even touch base on here was, and this was my experience as well as hers, is that by living that clean lifestyle, when I say clean, not eating processed food and eliminating sugar, you start to want to eliminate all those poisons and toxins that you've been putting in your body, including alcohol. Like I used to love having a glass of wine, but my wife and I haven't stopped drinking cold turkey. We'll have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, maybe over a 2 months or 3 month period. But it's because my body doesn't want it. It doesn't crave it. Because they do a great job in movies and in commercials, and wineries are very prevalent here in Virginia. And I support those farms that do that, but they make it so they romanticize sitting there with a glass of wine at dinner as you eat your bread with margarine. And so, but the reality of it is you're not going to experience those results that they're trying to trigger in you when you do go down that rabbit hole. But if you truly will live a clean lifestyle and use food as fuel, and that means one ingredient food, whether it's meat, eggs, you'll start to notice your body starts to go, yes, keep feeding me this bone broth, keep feeding me this. And you're not going to be as hungry. You're going to find yourself not as triggered or as angry and responding to people. You'll be able to observe what used to trigger you to go crazy. You'll be able to observe it and go, man, why was I getting mad over that? And then it goes back to your point. That's because you're literally being programmed chemically and habitually with a algorithm that they know is going to lead you right to what you're doing. And they'll keep feeding that until you become a drug-induced alcoholic gambler who likes to yell at people when you jump on an interstate to go to work, to pay for all that.
Oh, you just described it so well. You just described, this is a culture, this is an addiction culture. It's a very, very sick culture. And you guys are doing a great job of creating an alternative culture where decency and integrity where people are able to be decent and in integrity. When you've got these deceptive industries putting all this trash in your body, you don't really have the capacity to be a decent, high integrity person. It just takes a lot of energy to be different from the whole culture. So Jim, let me just add one thing to what you just said, which is if you find that you want to try this out and you can't get through 4 days without lapsing, we have a self-quiz at processedfoodaddiction.com. And you can just say, yes, yes, yes. You can determine for yourself. I love the empowering message in what you're saying, Jim. Nobody can tell you what to eat. And we even teach people a rotation method so that they can figure out what processed foods are doing to them, A, and B, which clean foods don't work for them.
Right.
So you're gathering data. It's a simple method where you eat the same protein on Monday, every Monday, all day long. And even on a carnivore diet, there are 7 families of proteins, and you can break it down and you can see which proteins are working for you. Like I know carnivores depend on dairy to a certain degree, but if you have a dairy day, it's every Thursday dairy, and you feel like crap on Thursdays, you know dairy's not working for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because it's permissible doesn't mean it's beneficial. And I think, we have to realize that. I mean, a lot of stuff's going on to get your gut biome to the condition that it is. Like Brian, just like Peggy and myself, Brian and Peggy Bev have similar gut issues in regards to how vegetables trigger them in a negative way. So, but that's a part that hasn't been healed yet. Doesn't mean that there always will trigger them, but they have to get the horse before the cart. And then at some point, like you say, you give it a shot and you go, hey, that didn't bother me this time. I'll implement it next month or then every other week. And then you're able to realize, but if it does cause something in you, then you go, okay, my body's not ready to receive that broccoli yet. So
or cabbage. I have a friend who just in the bathroom, eat cabbage in the bathroom. But they've done the rotation and they know, okay, it's that and it's that. That causes that. I don't eat it. I don't eat tomatoes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of clean foods. I think I must have experienced a trauma in relationship to the food because also the gourds, which is a big family. It's the melons in the fruit column, and it's the zucchini in the vegetable column, and it's the winter squash in the starch column. They just trigger asthma. I don't know why, but nobody can tell me, oh, you should be able to eat those. No, go away.
Well, we thank you for allowing us to kind of have you back on the show for
I'm delighted.
an hour to share your knowledge and your research that you're doing. And it's such a welcoming to our ears to hear a like-minded individual share and back it up with the research that you're actually doing. So I highly recommend anyone who's watching this program, go to the show notes, go to her website, and give it a shot.
Take the self-quiz.
And then
find out if you've got this.
Yeah, it's very important, and support her channel. Brian, you got any last questions that you want to ask or comments you want to make?
Well, yeah, I can make comments. There's so much information, and it's almost like almost overwhelming, when you think about this whole the society and where we've gotten. But then there's hope, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, there's more hope today. Those same brain imaging studies that the addiction monsters are using to addict us On our side, we're using that same research to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Our community is, it's not 1,000% evidence-based, but it's probably 999%, because I'm reading studies all the time. I say, oh, that worked. Oh, I see. Well, we could implement that over here. We're implementing new studies all the time. And
Well,
thank goodness for the researchers.
Yes, thank God for the researchers. Thank God for the people who are willing to go on YouTube and share what's really working for their practices or for their constituents or for their clients. Because I do believe the more of us that get on there and share our story, I mean, once we find out this you can call it a secret or this knowledge, you know, to just keep it to ourselves is greedy, but to go out there and live it out and to share it with others, that's what you said. That's what does the most good. Yes. And that's what I wake up for every day doing it. I wake up, and I think Brian does too. Like, you know, Brian is a Hall of Fame guitar player for a rock band. But the reality of it is, I think probably he gets more out of being the impact he's had on people's lives through helping them live a lifestyle that's going to bring them benefits. I mean, music does too. And I believe that's another thing that, you know, we haven't even discussed. But the reality of it is, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just going to say, I get more questions about diet and health than I do about music. I love answering. I mean, it's an endless subject for me. So
it's everybody is suffering.
Yeah,
everybody is suffering,
and it's just so it's cool when somebody is curious about it, you know, and I don't have to like preach it. I could just sit back and have people come to me and say, hey, I saw that post you did, like, and then they start asking me these questions. So then I just like, you know, try to spread the word.
You know, that's what we say to the people that we're training is it's very hard to wrap your head around the fact that your experience could save somebody else's life. Right. That is power. It's powerful. And like, oh no, you know, I don't do my food plan perfectly, so I can't really talk to anybody. Yes, you can. You can save somebody's life. But that's what you're doing, Brian. You just never know. But you know, over time, more people are going to show up at parties and like, oh no, I'm not having a dessert, thank you. Or no, I'm not having the bread, thank you. And this will catch on. Because the truth is, it's really easy to do if you're around people who are doing it. It's impossible to do if you're around people who are eating processed foods. Your conformance drive, your urge to belong, the safety in tribe will not let you deviate. The key, the secret is to get around people who are eating clean. Yeah. So every time you say something to somebody, you're creating that bond with them. You're giving their mirror neurons their drive. Oh, he does it. Oh, I could do it too.
Yeah, it's the same.
Beautiful.
It's the same with alcohol and drug addiction. I mean, you know, me having gone through recovery, when I first got sober, I just surrounded myself with sober people. So
exactly
same principle.
And now you're getting into a carnivore community, and you're surrounding yourself with carnivores.
Yeah. And it's the same principle with, you know, passing it on to the next person, you know. That
That is the 12th step of the 12 steps.
Yeah.
It's helping the next person.
Yeah.
It is thrilling. It is thrilling. People come into our community all the time. Well, I've been told that I will have this pain for the rest of my life. 6 weeks later, it's gone. It's just, well, I know that diabetes is not reversible. You know, 2 months later, doctor says, hey, your diabetes is gone. Yeah.
All right. It's that time of the evening where we get a chance to check in with Mr. Brian Shanker of the MeatTribe channel for those meat deals of the week. And don't know he's going to be able to top last week's specials, but he's already shaking no. So, hey, Brian, welcome back. What do you got for us tonight?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, nothing is going to top the Harris Teeter and Food Lion ribeye deals, but still some good deals overall. So Food Lion's got a couple of deals going through the 12th. They've got 25% off all of their Nature's Promise meat and seafood. and they've got some choice grade boneless New York strips for $7.99. So still not too bad if you like New York strips. That's a good price. Aldi has a deal running through the 12th as well, and it's a choice grade. It's Morton's of Omaha salt and pepper seasoned or Texas barbecue briskets for $5.99 per pound. And Harris Teeter does have some steaks on sale, but they are not the ribeyes. They are the bone-in porterhouse T-bone steaks in a value pack. Rancher grade is $6.99. The small pack is $7.49, and the choice grade is $7.99. So if you feel like having a porterhouse or a T-bone, those are good prices for that. And yeah, then that's a good price. Kroger, a couple of deals running through the 12th. They've got some chuck roasts or chuck steaks, buy one get one free. So I'm hoping that whatever the original price is, is decent, that the buy one get one free makes that a good deal. And then they've got the hot pick of the week. It's a choice grade whole brisket. It has a digital coupon and it's $1.99 per pound. So sorry, phone call coming in. So in case that got cut off, choice grade whole brisket with a digital coupon for $1.99 per pound, which is really good price.
That is really good.
And then the last couple of deals are at Giant Eagle. Their deals run through the 13th. They're both, one's certified Angus beef, chuck roasts or steaks for $5.99 per pound, or prime grade chuck roasts or steaks for $6.99 per pound. So not too bad. And if you've ever had the chuck steaks, that they make, they're similar to a ribeye.
They are.
They're not going to be as big, but they're close. They're close.
Well, I did find out with the last week's Food Lion ribeye special that they were running. I think they were $7.99 a pound. I did go to my local Food Lion, and they did cut me 2-inch ribeyes.
Nice.
And family packs. I got 4 2-inch thick ribeyes, and they were great cuts for $7.99 a pound. So I think the packet that I bought would have been $90 some. It was $60. So it was a good deal. Good.
That's a really good price. And those are choice grade. So comparing that to Harris Teeter's choice grade, Harris Teeter's choice grade was $8.99 per pound, and you got it for $7.99 per pound. So I'd say that's a pretty good deal.
It was a real good deal.
Did you eat them yet?
I ate 2 of them. I had 2 of them. I put the other 2. I vacuum sealed them and put them in the freezer. So they're in the freezer on the shelf with the rest of the ribeyes that have been purchased while on sale. So
nice.
Yeah, just to give you total transparency, we are literally smoking for the next 12 hours, starting tonight around probably 10 o'clock. One of the 6 frozen turkeys that we bought 2 years ago. So we've been brining it for the last 24 hours, but tonight at 10 o'clock, it's going to go into the smoker, and then tomorrow morning, pull it out, and we'll have smoked turkey.
Nice. Make sure you take some pictures and send them to me. I want to see that.
Absolutely. You got it. Well, thanks again for tuning in with us and giving us those meat deals of the week. And we'll look forward to seeing you. So what's your meat deal pick of the week?
Yeah, the hot pick of the week this week is going to be that Kroger choice grade brisket with the digital coupon at $1.99 per pound.
So Brian, go out there and get yourself that brisket.
That's right. To add to his 7 others that he has in the freezer.
Add to his collection, that's for sure. All right, Brian. Well, hey, thanks for those deals of the week, and we'll see you next Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim.
Oh, thank you.
It's
Brian,
fun.
what piece of advice would you dispense to people that's been very beneficial to you and living the lifestyle that you've lived? What would you say to people?
I'd say eat your meat.
And I would second that. And Dr. Joan Ifland, thank you so much for joining us again.
For having me. I love seeing you guys.
we love having you on board, and we'll love to have you on again. And people, please go check out her website. Sign up for
ProcessFoodAddiction.com.
There you go. Go there, check her out on Facebook, and let's be part of this ever growing community that's going to change the lives of others. So as we always say here, stay safe, stay out of that hospital. We'll see you next Friday, everybody. Take care.
Rock on.
See you. Thank you, Joan.